Emperor Velcaro stood before the Great Assembly, facing representatives from 300 species across the galaxy. The massive chamber had never hosted such a gathering, and the tension was overwhelming. For the first time in Imperial history, member species were questioning the Empire's military supremacy. "Honorable delegates," the Emperor began, "we face an unprecedented crisis. The human species has repeatedly defeated Imperial fleets using tactics that violate every principle of civilized warfare." Ambassador Krixtal of the hegemony world spoke first. "Your Majesty, our own military advisors are studying these human tactics. If they can defeat Imperial forces with converted civilian ships, what does this mean for galactic security?" The question that everyone feared to ask had been spoken aloud. If the mighty Imperial Navy could be defeated by primitive humans using improvised weapons, then perhaps the Empire was not as invincible as everyone believed. On Earth, President Lehan prepared for what might be humanity's final diplomatic effort. The aliens had agreed to peace negotiations, but everyone knew this was likely the last chance to avoid total war. "The Empire has two choices," she told her cabinet. "They can accept that we will never submit to their authority, or they can try to destroy us completely." Defense Coordinator Kim Jae-won spread out intelligence reports on the conference table. "Our deep space scouts are detecting massive fleet movements throughout Imperial space. If they decide on total war, they'll bring everything they have." "And if they do?" President Lee asked. Dr. Bae Suman, humanity's lead xenopsychologist, had been studying alien behavior for months. "They'll lose," she said with quiet confidence. "Not because we're stronger, but because they can't change their way of thinking. Every other species in the galaxy evolved from pack hunters or hive minds. They developed formal military structures because that's how they naturally think." "Explain," President Lee requested. "Pack hunters like wolves have clear hierarchies and coordinated attacks," Dr. Bae continued. "Hive minds like ants follow predetermined patterns and roles. Both types create military systems based on rigid organization and predictable tactics. And humans? We evolved as persistence hunters and problem solvers. When we encounter a new challenge, we don't just adapt to it. We actively seek to change the rules to give ourselves an advantage. The aliens keep trying to make us fight according to their rules, but we're rewriting the rules of warfare itself." Back in the Imperial capital, the Great Assembly was in chaos. Reports were coming in from across the galaxy of species beginning to question Imperial authority. Some were demanding explanations for the military failures against humanity. Others were quietly beginning to modify their own defensive strategies based on human tactics. Strategic advisor Kel Duran presented his final analysis to the Emperor and the Assembly. "The human threat extends far beyond military concerns," he warned. "Their approach to warfare has inspired other species to question our fundamental assumptions about power and control. We are facing not just a military rebellion, but an ideological revolution." Emperor Velcaros knew the truth that nobody wanted to acknowledge. The Empire's power had always been based on the assumption that overwhelming force could solve any problem. The humans had proven this assumption wrong, and word was spreading throughout the galaxy. Fleet Admiral Song Myong received the final preparations for humanity's ultimate defense. Instead of building more ships, humans had spent the last months constructing something far more dangerous to Imperial thinking: industrial capacity. "Status report," he requested from his staff aboard the command station orbiting Earth. "All shipyards are operational," reported Chief Engineer Park Dowan. "We can now construct a complete battle platform in 72 hours using modular components. Resource gathering? Asteroid mining operations are exceeding projections. We have enough raw materials to build ships faster than any fleet can destroy them." Admiral Song nodded with satisfaction. The Empire would arrive expecting to find humanity's ultimate fleet waiting for them. Instead, they would discover something that challenged the very foundations of military thinking. The Imperial Grand Fleet approached the Sol system 3 days later. Every available warship had been assembled for this final confrontation. Over 400 vessels arranged in the largest military formation in galactic history. Emperor Velcaros commanded personally from his flagship, determined to end the human threat once and for all. As the fleet entered the outer solar system, his sensors detected the human defensive positions. "Report," the Emperor demanded. "Sir, we're detecting human installations throughout the system," the tactical officer replied hesitantly. "But they don't appear to be warships." "Explain." "They look like construction facilities, Your Majesty. Shipyards, mining platforms, and manufacturing centers." Emperor Velkaros studied the sensor displays in confusion. Where was the human fleet? Where were their ultimate warships and secret weapons? Admiral Park Ji-won commanded humanity's response from a converted asteroid. Base. She watched the alien fleet advance and smiled grimly. "They're still thinking like a traditional military," she told her staff. "They expect us to meet their fleet with our fleet." "What's our actual plan?" asked Captain Yoon Dae-hee. "We show them what real industrial warfare looks like," Admiral Park replied. "Signal all facilities, begin production." Across the solar system, human industrial platforms activated simultaneously. What the aliens had dismissed as civilian infrastructure suddenly revealed its true purpose. The shipyards, mining stations, and manufacturing centers were not just building ships. They were building the capacity to build ships. As the Imperial fleet watched in amazement, human facilities began producing complete battle platforms at an impossible rate. Modular components assembled themselves into functional warships within hours. Mining platforms processed asteroids into raw materials and immediately converted them into weapons and armor. "This is impossible," Emperor Velkaros whispered. "No species can manufacture military vessels this quickly." But humans were not manufacturing traditional military vessels. They were producing modular platforms that could be reconfigured for any purpose. A cargo module became a missile launcher. A mining platform became a fighter base. A passenger compartment became a weapons control center. Captain Won Ji-hoon commanded one of the first platforms to roll off the production lines. The inevitable was literally built during the battle, with different sections constructed simultaneously at various facilities throughout the system. "All sections report ready for combat," his crew announced. "Then let's show them what human engineering can do," Captain Won replied. The human platforms did not fight like traditional ships. They constantly modified themselves based on battlefield conditions, adding new weapons, changing configurations, and even combining with other platforms to create larger vessels. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that was not just adapting to their tactics but actively evolving new capabilities during combat. Every destroyed human platform provided parts and lessons for building better ones. Emperor Velkaros realized with growing horror that he was not fighting a fleet. He was fighting an entire industrial civilization that had converted itself into a military force. The humans could literally build new ships faster than the Empire could destroy them. "Sir, we're losing ships faster than we can engage targets," reported his fleet commander. "The humans are producing new platforms faster than our sensors can track them." The psychological impact was devastating. Imperial crews had been trained to fight against other fleets, not against an enemy that grew stronger during battle. Many alien ships began to retreat without orders, unable to comprehend what they were fighting against. The final moment came when Admiral Park Ji-won delivered a message directly to the Imperial flagship. "Emperor Velkaros, you have been trying to fight our ships. You should have been trying to understand our minds." "What do you mean?" the Emperor demanded. "Your empire is based on the idea that superior force can control any situation, Admiral," Park explained. "But we represent something different. We're not just another species seeking power. We're an approach to existence that treats every problem as something to be solved through creativity and adaptation." She paused, letting the words sink in. "You can destroy our current ships, but we'll build new ones. You can develop counters to our tactics, but we'll invent new approaches. You can bring bigger fleets, but we'll find ways to make size irrelevant." "What are you proposing?" Emperor Velkaros asked quietly. "Peace," Admiral Park said simply. "Not surrender, not submission, but genuine peace between equals. We're willing to share what we've learned about adaptive warfare, industrial capacity, and creative problem-solving. In return, we want recognition as an independent species with the right to exist according to our own principles." The Emperor was silent for a long moment, Around him, his flagship's crew waited for his decision. Throughout the galaxy, species watched to see how the mighty Empire would respond to this unprecedented challenge. The Empire has ruled for 1,000 years by establishing order through strength, Emperor Velkaros finally said. But perhaps it is time to consider that there are different forms of strength. The peace negotiations began that day. For the first time in Galactic, Grand Admiral Zixithera commanded the largest fleet in Imperial history. 200 warships arranged in perfect formation, advancing toward the Sol system like an unstoppable tide of destruction. The Emperor had given clear orders: end the human threat permanently. This time we overwhelm them with pure force, the Grand Admiral announced to his fleet commanders. No matter how creative their tactics, they cannot stand against this much firepower. The Imperial fleet expected to find humanity's best warships waiting for them. Instead, they encountered something that defied all logic and military sense. Fleet Commander Park Yunji waited for them with the Scrap Fleet. The Scrap Fleet was humanity's ultimate expression of improvised warfare. There were no traditional ships in the formation. Instead, humans had welded together space stations, asteroid mining platforms, derelict vessels, and industrial equipment into massive, irregular structures that barely resembled spacecraft. "Sir, we're detecting over 100 human vessels," reported the Imperial tactical officer. "But they don't match any known ship classifications." Grand Admiral Zixithera studied the sensor readings with growing confusion. The human fleet looked like a collection of flying scrapyards held together with metal cables and hope. "What are those things?" he demanded. Captain Oh Seung-ho commanded one of the strangest vessels in the human fleet. The Improviser was built from 3 cargo ships, 2 mining rigs, and a space station's power core. It had no symmetry, no standard weapon systems, and no apparent design logic. "All stations prepare for contact," Captain Oh broadcast to his crew. "Remember, we're not trying to look military. We're trying to look like organized chaos." His weapons included industrial lasers, modified construction equipment, and a mass driver that could shoot literal garbage at near-light speed. The ship's hull was covered in salvaged armor plates from different vessels, giving it a patchwork appearance that hurt to look at. Lieutenant Nam Yuna led a squadron of what appeared to be mobile shipyards. Her vessels looked like civilian industrial platforms, complete with construction cranes and manufacturing equipment. The aliens assumed they were support ships staying behind the main fleet. They were wrong. "Commence manufacturing operations," Lieutenant Nam ordered. Her ships were actually weapons platforms disguised as industrial facilities. They could manufacture missiles during combat, turning space debris into ammunition faster than the aliens could destroy it. The Imperial fleet advanced in perfect battle formation, expecting the humans to either flee or arrange themselves for proper military engagement. Instead, the human scrap fleet did something unprecedented. It began to change shape. "What are they doing?" Grand Admiral Zixithera asked in alarm. The human ships were not just floating in space. They were actively reconfiguring themselves, using construction equipment to modify their own structures during the approach to battle. Damaged sections were cut away and replaced with spare parts. Weapons were moved from one ship to another, based on tactical needs. Captain Song Mayong commanded a battle platform that looked like it had been built from the remains of a dozen different ships. The Persistence had started life as a passenger liner, but it now included parts from cargo haulers, mining vessels, and even pieces of space stations. "Engineering, give me more power to the forward mass drivers," Captain Song ordered. "Sir, we don't have forward mass drivers," replied Chief Engineer Bei Hyejin. "Then build some," Captain Song said calmly. "Use whatever parts you can find." While the Imperial fleet watched in amazement, the human engineering crews began building new weapons. During the approach to combat, they cannibalized non-essential systems, repurposed industrial equipment, and even used spare hull plating to create improvised weapons. The battle began when the Imperial fleet opened fire with their coordinated energy weapons. Bright beams of destruction lanced across space toward the human fleet. But the humans did not try to dodge or return fire in any conventional sense. Instead, They did something that broke every rule of space combat. They began rebuilding their fleet during the ID. Battle Captain Kim Jae-won commanded a vessel called the Phoenix that was designed to be destroyed and rebuilt repeatedly. When Imperial fire damaged his ship's forward section, his crew simply cut it away and welded on a replacement built from spare parts and debris. The aliens watched in horror as human ships that should have been destroyed continued fighting with completely different configurations. A weapons platform became a fighter carrier, a transport ship became a mobile fortress, a mining vessel became a missile factory. "This is impossible," Grand Admiral Zixthera shouted. "Ships cannot rebuild themselves during combat." But the humans were doing exactly that. They had abandoned the concept of fixed ship designs in favor of modular platforms that could be reconfigured for any situation. Engineering crews worked frantically to adapt their vessels to changing battle conditions. Lieutenant Commander Yu Jinwan commanded a squadron of what looked like construction ships. When the battle began, his vessels used their industrial equipment to build new fighters from spare parts and launch them at the enemy. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that could literally manufacture new ships faster than they could destroy them. The strangest moment came when Captain Lee Sun-hee's ship was cut in half by Imperial fire. Instead of being destroyed, both halves continued fighting as separate vessels. The crew had prepared for this possibility by designing redundant systems throughout the ship. "How do we fight an enemy that gets stronger when we damage them?" asked the Imperial tactical officer. Grand Admiral Zixthera had no answer. Every principle of warfare said that damaging enemy ships should weaken their combat effectiveness. But the humans seemed to treat battle damage as an opportunity to improve their designs. The fighting raged for 18 hours. The Imperial fleet had superior firepower and better technology, but they could not adapt to the constantly changing tactical situation. Every time they developed a strategy to counter human tactics, the humans would modify their ships and try something completely different. Captain Park Youngman commanded a vessel built entirely from salvaged alien technology. The Revenge was constructed from the remains of Imperial ships destroyed in previous battles. When Imperial forces fired at it, they were essentially shooting at their own equipment. "Sir, the aliens seem confused," reported Tactical Officer Wan Q-Wan. "Good," Captain Park replied. "Fire their own weapons back at them." The psychological effect was devastating. Imperial crews found themselves fighting against their own technology, modified and improved by human engineering. It was like fighting their own reflection in a twisted mirror. As the battle continued, the aliens realized they were not just fighting ships. They were fighting an entire philosophy of warfare based on constant adaptation and creative problem-solving. The humans treated every tactical challenge as an engineering problem to be solved through improvisation. When the Imperial fleet finally began to retreat, they had lost 43 ships and suffered damage to most of the others. But the most disturbing discovery was that the human fleet was actually larger at the end of the battle than it had been at the beginning. The humans had literally built new ships during the fighting. Grand Admiral Zixthera sat in his command chair, staring at the tactical display in stunned silence. His massive fleet had been defeated not by superior firepower or better tactics, but by an enemy that refused to follow any known rules of combat. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked his aide. "Signal the Emperor," the Grand Admiral said quietly. "Tell him that we are not fighting ships. We are not even fighting humans. We are fighting an idea, and ideas cannot be destroyed with weapons." The Yao message reached the Imperial capital 12 hours later. For the first time in its history, the Galactic Empire faced an enemy that could not be defeated through traditional military means. The humans had proven that adaptability was more powerful than overwhelming force, and creativity was more dangerous than the largest fleet. They had not just won another battle, they had fundamentally changed the nature of warfare itself. Emperor Velkaros called an emergency session of the High Council. Military leaders, diplomats, and advisors gathered to discuss what everyone now recognized as the Empire's greatest crisis. The human problem was no longer about one rebellious species. It was about the survival of Imperial authority across the entire galaxy. Other species were beginning to ask uncomfortable questions about imperial military doctrine. If humans could defeat the Empire's finest fleets using converted civilian ships and improvised tactics, what did that say about imperial power? The Empire faced a choice: find a way to make peace with humanity, or risk losing control of the entire galaxy as other species learn from the human example. The final confrontation was approaching, and for the first time in its 1,000-year history, the Galactic Empire was not certain of victory. Strategic advisor Keldaran stood before the Imperial War Council, displaying holographic images of human ships in combat. The alien leaders watched in confusion as converted cargo vessels attacked military warships using tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. Honorable Council members, Keldaran began, we have analyzed every battle between Imperial forces and human vessels. The results are disturbing. Emperor Velkarus leaned forward on his throne. Explain. The humans do not fight like any known species, Keldaran said. They have no standardized ship designs, no consistent tactics, and no apparent military hierarchy. Every human captain fights differently. Grand Admiral Zixithara interrupted. Surely their primitive nature explains this chaos. They lack proper military training. That was our initial assumption, Keldaran replied. But further analysis suggests something more troubling. The humans appear to be improvising their tactics in real time, adapting to each new situation as it develops. The War Council fell, silent. In the Empire's 1,000-year history, military doctrine had evolved slowly and carefully. Tactics were tested, refined, and standardized across the entire fleet. The idea of making up new strategies during battle was unthinkable. On Earth, Admiral Kang Taman faced his own challenges. He had never expected to command humanity's defense fleet, mainly because he was not actually military. Before the alien crisis, he had been a logistics coordinator for civilian shipping. Now he was responsible for protecting the entire human race. Sir, we're getting reports from all over the system, said Dr. Han Minji, the xenobiologist who had become their expert on alien psychology. The aliens are studying our tactics. Good, Admiral Kang replied. Let them study. By the time they figure out what we're doing, we'll be doing something else. Colonel Lim Wanchik, the former police tactical commander, spread out the latest intelligence reports. The aliens are having trouble understanding our command structure. They keep trying to identify our military hierarchy. What do you mean? Dr. Han asked. They think we have generals and admirals giving orders to everyone else, Colonel Lim explained. But our captains make most of their own decisions. The aliens can't predict our moves because there's no central authority to analyze. Admiral Kang nodded. This was exactly what he had hoped. The aliens expected humanity to fight like a traditional military force with clear ranks and standardized procedures. Instead, they faced something that resembled an armed civilian militia, where every captain was free to use their own judgment. Back in the Imperial capital, strategic advisor Keldaran continued his briefing to the War Council. We have identified several disturbing patterns in human behavior, he said, displaying more combat footage. First, they appear to view every ship as expendable. While our doctrine emphasizes preserving vessels and crews, humans will sacrifice entire ships to accomplish tactical objectives. Barbaric, muttered Defense Minister Kolvex. Perhaps, Keldaran agreed, but also effective. They use suicide attacks not out of desperation, but as a calculated tactic. This makes their behavior unpredictable and gives them options that civilized species would never consider. The next hologram showed a human cargo ship splitting apart during battle. Second, their ships are designed to change configuration during combat. We have observed vessels that separate into multiple units, combine with other ships, or completely rebuild themselves using spare parts. Grand Admiral Zixithara studied the images with growing alarm. Their ships have no structural integrity. How do they maintain combat effectiveness? That appears to be the point, Keldaran said. By building modular vessels, they can adapt to any situation. A cargo ship becomes a fighter carrier. A passenger liner becomes a weapons platform. We never know what we're actually fighting until The battle begins. Emperor Velkaros spoke slowly. What else? Most troubling of all, they seem to treat warfare as a problem-solving exercise rather than a military engagement. Our analysts believe they approach each battle as if it were an engineering challenge to be solved through creative application of available resources. The War Council exchanged worried glances. Military doctrine across the galaxy was based on proven strategies developed over centuries of warfare. The humans were apparently making up new strategies for every battle. On Earth, Dr. Han Minji presented her analysis of alien psychology to Admiral Kang's staff. "I think I understand why we keep winning," she said. "The aliens evolved from different species than we did. Most of them were either pack hunters or hive minds. They developed formal military structures because that's how they think naturally." "And humans?" Admiral Kang asked. "We evolved as persistence hunters and problem solvers," Dr. Han replied. "We're naturally adaptable. When we encounter a new challenge, our first instinct is to figure out how to change the rules in our favor." Colonel Lim nodded thoughtfully. "So while they're trying to fight us according to their rules, we're busy rewriting the rules to suit us." "Exactly," Dr. Han said. "They expect us to learn their way of fighting and adapt to it. Instead, we're forcing them to adapt to our way of fighting. And they're not very good at adaptation." The implications were staggering. Humanity was not just winning individual battles. They were changing the nature of warfare itself. Every encounter with alien forces taught humans new ways to exploit alien weaknesses and rigid thinking. Back in the Imperial capital, Strategic Advisor Keldaran delivered his final assessment to the War Council. "In conclusion, we are not fighting a traditional military force. We are fighting an entire species that approaches conflict differently than any known civilization. Their greatest weapon is not technology or numbers, but their ability to think outside established paradigms." Emperor Velkaros was quiet for a long moment. "What do you recommend?" "Total warfare," said Grand Admiral Zixthara immediately. "We mobilize the entire Imperial fleet and crush them before they spread their chaos to other species." "Negotiation," countered Diplomatic Advisor Murthane. "Perhaps we can find a peaceful solution that avoids further military embarrassment." Strategic Advisor Keldaran shook his head. "Both approaches may fail. Total warfare assumes we can overwhelm their adaptability through sheer force, but our analysis suggests that humans become more creative under pressure, not less. As for negotiation, they have already demonstrated that they do not respect traditional power structures." "Then what do you suggest?" the Emperor asked. "We need to fundamentally reconsider our approach," Keldaran said. "We have been trying to fight the humans using established military doctrine. This has failed repeatedly. Perhaps we need to learn from them instead of simply trying to defeat them." The War Council erupted in angry voices. The idea that the mighty Galactic Empire should learn from primitive humans was insulting to many of the military leaders, but Emperor Velkaros silenced them with a gesture. "Continue." "The humans have already changed the nature of space warfare," Keldaran explained. "Other species in the Empire are beginning to ask questions about our military failures. If we cannot find a way to deal with humanity, our authority across the galaxy may be compromised." The truth was becoming clear to everyone in the room. The human problem was not just about one primitive species refusing to submit to Imperial authority. It was about the possibility that other species might decide they did not need to follow Imperial rules either. The humans had demonstrated that superior technology and overwhelming numbers could be defeated by superior adaptability and creative thinking. This was a dangerous lesson for the rest of the galaxy to learn. Emperor Velkaros made his decision. "Prepare the Grand Fleet. We will end this threat once and for all." But as the War Council dispersed to prepare for the largest military operation in Imperial history, Strategic Advisor Keldaran wondered if they were making a terrible mistake. The humans had already proven they did not fight like any other species. What would they do when faced with the Empire's ultimate show of force? General Thakmor studied the battle reports with growing frustration. 2 Imperial fleets had been embarrassed by primitive human ships. The Emperor was demanding answers, and the Military Council was questioning the competence of the Imperial Navy. How do they keep winning? General Thakmor asked his aide, Colonel Vexrun. Their ships are converted civilian vessels. Their weapons are industrial equipment. They have no military training. Colonel Vexrun displayed the latest intelligence reports. Sir, our analysts believe the humans are using unconventional tactics because they do not understand proper warfare. They fight like criminals. Then we will teach them, General, Thakmor declared. Prepare the third battle fleet full strength. I want enough firepower to destroy their entire system. The largest Imperial fleet in history assembled near the edge of human space. 50 warships arranged in perfect formation, advancing toward Earth like an unstoppable wall of metal and energy. General Thakmor commanded from the bridge of his flagship, a massive dreadnought called the Iron Will. This time we follow proper military doctrine, he announced to his fleet commanders. Battle line formation, coordinated energy barrages. We will show these humans how civilized species conduct warfare. Captain Choi Minho received the news of the approaching fleet while standing in the command center of Ceres Station. The converted asteroid base served as humanity's military headquarters, though it looked more like a mining operation than a fortress. 50 ships, reported intelligence officer Yang Sora. All heavy warships. They're not taking any chances. This time, Captain Choi studied the tactical display. Humanity's entire fleet consisted of 38 converted civilian vessels, 2 actual military ships, and whatever else they could find with engines and weapons. On paper, it was hopeless. What's our status? Choi asked. The usual, replied engineer Kim Dae-hyun. Half our ships are held together with spare parts and good intentions. The other half shouldn't even be in space. Captain Choi nodded. That was exactly what he had expected. Then we'll have to be creative. Send word to all captains. Operation Chaos is go. Operation Chaos was humanity's response to superior alien firepower. Since they could not match the aliens ship for ship, they would make the battle so confusing that superior numbers would not matter. The alien fleet entered the outer solar system in perfect formation. General Thakmor felt confident as he watched his ships advance. Nothing the humans had could stand against this much firepower. Sir, we're detecting human ships throughout the system, reported the tactical officer. They appear to be scattered randomly. Excellent, General Thakmor said. They have no formation discipline. We will destroy them one by one. But as the Imperial fleet advanced, strange things began to happen. Captain Won Ji-young commanded a former luxury passenger liner called the Golden Star. Her ship looked like it was running away from the aliens, but it was actually dropping clouds of metallic particles that interfered with alien sensors. Pilot Ryu Daeho led a squadron of modified racing craft. His ships were too small to carry serious weapons, but they were fast and hard to hit. Each racing craft carried a single large bomb designed to damage much larger ships. The aliens tried to maintain their battle formation, but the human ships would not cooperate. Some attacked from above, others from below. A few even came from behind, having somehow circled around the entire alien fleet. This is chaos, General Thakmor complained. How can we maintain formation when the enemy is everywhere? Engineer Yang Sora had spent months modifying human ships for this battle. Her greatest creation was Captain Lee Wanbin's vessel, the Scrap Heap. The ship used to be a cargo hauler, but Yang had turned its fusion reactor into a directed energy weapon. When the reactor overloaded, it created a beam of pure energy that could cut through alien hull armor. The beam only worked once before burning out the reactor, but that was enough. Captain Lee aimed his ship at the largest alien vessel and fired. The energy beam punched through the alien ship's shields and hull, causing massive damage. Then Captain Lee did something that horrified the aliens. Instead of trying to escape, he rammed his dying ship into the alien vessel. The collision destroyed both ships, but it also created a massive debris field that scattered the alien formation. Madness, General Thakmor shouted. They're using suicide attacks. But the humans were not committing suicide randomly. Each attack was carefully planned to cause maximum disruption. When Captain Park Ji-hoon's mining ship was about to be destroyed, he detonated all his mining charges at once. The explosion took out 2 alien fighters and created another debris field. The battle raged for 12 hours. The aliens had superior firepower, and better ships, but they could not bring their advantages to bear. Every time they tried to form a battle line, human ships would attack from unexpected angles. Every time they focused on one human ship, 3 others would appear behind them. Captain Moon Sang-hyun commanded a converted space tug called the Worker's Pride. His ship was so small and weak that the aliens ignored it at first. But Moon had filled his cargo bay with industrial equipment and turned his ship into a mobile repair facility. While the battle raged around him, Moon's crew worked frantically to repair damaged human ships. They welded hull breaches, replaced, destroyed weapons, and even transferred crew members between vessels. The aliens watched in amazement as human ships that should have been destroyed returned to battle within hours. The strangest moment came when Captain Seo Min-jung's cargo ship suddenly split apart in the middle of the battle. The aliens thought they had destroyed it, but then they realized the ship had been designed to separate into multiple smaller vessels. Each section had its own weapons and crew, instantly turning one target into 5. How is this possible? General Thakmore demanded. Their ships are changing configuration during battle. The truth was that humanity had given up trying to build traditional warships. Instead, they built modular vessels that could be reconfigured for different missions. A cargo ship could become a fighter carrier, a passenger liner could become a missile platform, and a mining ship could become a mobile fortress. As the battle continued, the aliens realized they were fighting something that did not follow any known rules of warfare. The humans treated every ship as expendable, every tactic as temporary, and every rule as a suggestion to be ignored. When the alien fleet finally retreated, they had lost 15 ships and suffered damage to 20 more. The human fleet had lost 12 vessels, but most of their crews had survived in escape pods or by transferring to other ships. General Thakmore sat in his command chair, staring at the tactical display. His massive fleet had been fought to a standstill by converted civilian vessels and industrial equipment. It should have been impossible. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked Colonel Vexrun. "Signal the Emperor," General Thakmore said quietly. "Tell him we need to reconsider our approach to the human problem." "What shall I tell him about their tactics?" General Thakmore thought for a long moment. "Tell him that humans do not fight like a military force. They fight like an entire species that has decided to make war a creative art form." The message reached the imperial capital 3 days later. For the first time in the Empire's 1,000-year history, a primitive species had fought the Imperial Navy to a standstill using converted civilian ships and improvised weapons. The Emperor called an emergency session of the War Council. Military leaders from across the galaxy gathered to discuss the human problem. None of them had any idea what to do. The humans had broken every rule of civilized warfare and somehow made it work. Commander Park Jin-woo read the message from Captain Lee Hyun 3 times before he believed it. The first human ship to meet aliens had not only survived, but had somehow forced an alien warship to retreat. The news spread quickly through Earth's defense network. Park stood in the command center of Luna Station, watching ships move around Earth's moon. Most of them were not warships. Earth had only 6 real military vessels, and they were all small patrol boats. Everything else was converted. Civilian ships. "Sir, we're getting reports from our deep space scouts," said Lieutenant Choi Mira. "The aliens are mobilizing a large fleet. They're coming to Earth." Park nodded. He had expected this. The alien empire would want revenge for their embarrassment. The question was how to fight them with converted cargo ships and mining vessels. "How long do we have?" Park asked. 3 weeks, maybe 4, Lieutenant Choi replied. Park turned to his staff. "Send word to all civilian ships in the system. We need volunteers. Any ship that can mount weapons or carry troops." Over the next 2 weeks, Earth's fleet grew in the strangest way. Luxury passenger ships volunteered and were fitted with hidden missile launchers. Cargo haulers had railguns welded to their hulls. Even small racing craft were modified to carry bombs. The alien fleet arrived exactly 3 weeks later. 27 warships in perfect formation, advancing toward Earth like a moving wall of death. They were commanded by Admiral Kelson, a veteran of 100 battles. Lieutenant Commander Kim Nari waited for them near Jupiter with her squadron of modified freight vessels. Her ships looked like normal cargo carriers, which was exactly what she wanted. "Remember," she broadcast to her captains, "we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to survive and make them hurt." The alien fleet detected Kim Nari's squadron and moved to engage them. Admiral Kelson expected a quick victory. These human ships looked like civilian vessels with some weapons attached. Nothing that could threaten proper warships. "All ships. Battle formation," Admiral Kelson ordered. "Prepare to engage the human fleet." The alien ships arranged themselves in neat rows and began firing their energy weapons. Bright beams of light shot across space toward the human ships. But the human ships did not line up to fight back. Instead, they scattered in all directions like startled fish. Some dove toward Jupiter's moons. Others climbed above the plane of the solar system. A few even flew directly toward the alien fleet before turning away at the last second. "What are they doing?" Admiral Kelson demanded. "Stand and fight." But the humans would not stand and fight. Captain Song Tae-ho commanded, a converted mining ship called the Iron Mule. He flew into an asteroid field and waited. When two alien ships followed him, he used his mining lasers to break apart asteroids, creating a cloud of flying rocks between him and his enemies. The alien ships had to slow down and pick their way carefully through the debris. While they did, Captain Song fired his railgun through the asteroid cloud. Chunks of metal moving at incredible speed punched through the aliens' energy shields like they were not even there. Lieutenant Park Yuna commanded a former passenger liner called the Star Dancer. She had hidden missile launchers built into her ship's luxury compartments. When alien ships got close, the missile bays opened and unleashed swarms of small rockets. The aliens had never seen anything like these tactics. Their energy shields were designed to stop directed energy weapons, not chunks of metal flying at high speed. Their formation fighting assumed that both sides would stand in lines and shoot at each other until one side won. The human ships fought, like pirates or bandits. They hid behind planets and moons, used civilian traffic routes for cover, and attacked from unexpected angles. Worst of all, they seemed to coordinate their attacks through normal civilian communication channels instead of military networks. Captain Won Do-yoon commanded a converted cargo ship that should not even have been in the battle. His vessel was so old and slow that any military academy would have laughed at it. But Won had filled his cargo holds with industrial equipment and turned his ship into a mobile factory. While other human ships distracted the aliens, Won's ship built missiles and ammunition during the fight. He launched newly built weapons at alien ships, then immediately started building more. The aliens could not understand how a single ship could fire so many missiles. The battle lasted for 8 hours. When it was over, 5 alien ships had been destroyed and 7 more were badly damaged. The human fleet had lost 3 ships, but the crews of those ships had escaped in lifeboats. Admiral Kelson stared at the tactical display in disbelief. His fleet should have won easily. The humans had inferior ships, no military training, and no proper formation discipline. But somehow they had fought his professional navy to a standstill. "Sir, the human ships are withdrawing," reported his tactical officer. "Let them go," Admiral Kelson said quietly. "Signal the fleet. We return to base." As the alien fleet retreated, Admiral Kelson tried to write his report. How could he explain what had happened? The humans did not fight like any known species. They had no honor, no proper tactics, and no respect for military tradition, but they had won. Back on Earth, Commander Park Jin-woo received the battle reports from Lieutenant Commander Kim Nari. The first real space battle between humans and aliens was over, and somehow humanity had survived. "They'll be back," Park told his staff, "and they'll bring more ships next time." "What do we do?" asked Lieutenant Choi Mira. Park looked at the reports again. Human crews had shown incredible creativity under pressure. They had turned merchant ships into weapons platforms, used civilian infrastructure as military assets, and fought with tactics that no military academy would teach. "We do what humans do best," Park said. "We adapt." He began planning for the next attack. The aliens expected military formations and proper tactics. Instead, they would face something they had never encountered before: An entire species that treated warfare like a problem to be solved, rather than a ritual to be observed. The second battle would be even stranger than the first. Over the next few weeks, more reports came in from deep space. Human ships were encountering alien patrols throughout the outer system. Each encounter was different, but the pattern was always the same. The aliens expected formal military engagement. The humans gave them chaos. Captain Yoon Jisoo commanded a converted research vessel. When aliens demanded his surrender, he released a cloud of metallic particles that interfered with their sensors, then disappeared into a nebula. Captain Han Seokju used his cargo ship's magnetic crane to grab an alien fighter and throw it into an asteroid. Each human victory was small, but they added up. More importantly, they taught humanity valuable lessons about alien weaknesses. The aliens relied too much on their sensors. Their shields could not stop solid objects, and their tactics never changed. Commander Park began to see a pattern. The aliens were not stupid or weak, but they were predictable. They had rules about how space battles should work, and they could not adapt when those rules were broken. We're not fighting their ships, Park realized. We're fighting their minds. The real war was just beginning. Captain Lee Hyun stared at the massive alien ship through the viewport of the UES Dauntless. The ship was 3 times larger than his vessel, and covered in strange blue lights. It looked like nothing he had ever seen before. The aliens had been trying to talk to him for the past hour, and their message was always the same. Submit to Imperial authority. Prepare for boarding. Lee shook his head and turned to his crew. The Dauntless was not a warship. It used to be a mining vessel that hauled rocks from asteroids. When Earth decided to send ships to explore deep space, they took whatever they could find. The Dauntless got some weapons bolted onto its hull and basic shields powered by the mining equipment. "Sir, they're getting angry," said Communications Officer Kim Min-soo. He was young and nervous. This was his first deep space mission. "They keep demanding we lower our shields." Lee looked around the bridge. His crew of 12 had volunteered for this mission, knowing they might never come home. They were miners, engineers, and dock workers. None of them were soldiers, but they were brave. "Tell them we appreciate their offer, but Earth is not interested in joining their empire," Lee said calmly. The alien response came quickly. Admiral Vextar of the Zenthari Empire appeared on their screen. He looked like a tall lizard with 4 arms and glowing yellow eyes. His voice was cold and angry. "Primitive humans, you do not understand. This is not a request. You will submit or be destroyed. Our weapons can turn your ship into space dust." Lee studied the alien admiral. The creature seemed very sure of itself. Behind the admiral, Lee could see other aliens working at strange control panels. Everything looked very organized and formal. These aliens clearly had rules about how space battles should work. "I'm sorry, Admiral, but we cannot accept your terms," Lee replied. "We're peaceful explorers, but we won't be anyone's slaves." The alien admiral made an angry sound. "Then you have chosen death. Prepare your primitive vessel for destruction." Lee turned to his crew. "Everyone ready?" His people nodded. They had talked about this possibility before leaving Earth. If they met hostile aliens, they had a plan. It was not a good plan, but it was better than giving up. "Engineering, give me full power to the engines," Lee ordered. "Sir, are we running away?" asked Navigator Osuman. "No," Lee said with a grim smile. "We're going to ram them." The crew looked shocked. The alien ship was much bigger and stronger. Ramming it would destroy the Dauntless and kill everyone on board. "Sir, that's suicide," said Chief Engineer Ryu Donghae. "Maybe," Lee said. "But maybe not. Trust me." Lee activated the ship's communication system so the aliens could hear him. "This is Captain Lee Hyun of the UES Dauntless. Since you won't let us leave peacefully, we choose to die fighting. We're coming for your ship." The Dauntless suddenly accelerated toward the alien vessel. The massive Zenthari ship seemed to panic. They had expected the humans to either surrender or try to run away. Nobody had ever tried to ram an Imperial warship. "Before insane primitives!" Admiral Vextar shouted over the communication channel. "You cannot damage our shields with your weak ship." But Lee was not planning to ram the alien ship. As the Dauntless got closer, he gave the real order. "Now, Deploy all mining charges. The Dauntless had been a mining ship. Its cargo holds were full of explosives used to break apart asteroids. Chief Engineer Ryu had modified the deployment system so they could release all the charges at once. At the last second, just before hitting the alien ship, the Dauntless released hundreds of mining charges in all directions. The charges spread out in a perfect sphere around the Zenthari vessel. Each charge had a small engine and a proximity sensor. If anything tried to move through them, they would explode. The Dauntless flew past the alien ship, turned around, and came to a stop a safe distance away. The Zenthari vessel was now trapped inside a sphere of floating explosives. "What have you done?" Admiral Vextar demanded. "Created a minefield," Lee replied calmly. "Those charges are very sensitive. If your ship moves more than a few meters in any direction, they will detect the movement and explode. Each charge can crack open an asteroid. I think they might damage your ship." The alien admiral was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke in a different tone. He sounded confused and worried. "This is not how space combat works. Ships are supposed to fight with honor. You face each other and fire weapons until one ship wins." "Sorry, Admiral," Lee said. "Nobody told us the rules." For the next hour, the two ships sat in space, staring at each other. The aliens could not move without triggering the explosives. Their weapons could probably destroy some of the charges, but the explosions would damage their own ship. Finally, Admiral Vextar spoke again. "What do you want, human?" "Safe passage for our ships," Lee said. "We want to explore this part of space without being attacked by your empire. You are holding an Imperial warship hostage with mining equipment," the Admiral said slowly. "This is unprecedented. Is that a yes or a no?" The alien admiral was quiet for a long time. Then he gave his answer. "You will be allowed to pass through this sector without interference, but this incident will be reported to the Imperial High Command. They will not be pleased." "Thank you, Admiral," Lee said politely. "The charges will deactivate in 6 hours. That should give us time to leave the area." As the Dauntless prepared to depart, Communications Officer Kim Min-soo had a question. "Sir, what if they had called our bluff? What if they had started shooting?" Lee smiled. "Then we would have rammed them for real. Sometimes you have to be willing to do crazy things to survive." The Dauntless jumped to faster than light speed and disappeared, leaving the alien ship trapped in its own space, surrounded by human mining charges. Admiral Vextar stared at the empty space where the human ship had been. In 300 years of Imperial service, he had never encountered anything like this. The humans had no proper weapons, no military training, and no understanding of civilized warfare. But they had won. The Admiral began composing his report to Imperial High Command. How could he explain that a converted mining ship had defeated an Imperial warship using asteroid-breaking charges? How could he make them understand that these humans did not fight like any known species? The message he finally sent was simple. Humans do not field ships like that. It was the beginning of the Empire's greatest nightmare.